B-school programs are looking for the top 1% in a variety of categories. And in order for you to be in the top 1%, you need to be really good and you need to, most importantly, really enjoy doing that.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Get to Be School. This is your host, Drex, and I am grateful that you are here. Genuinely, I mean that. You could be listening to anything else right now, and you're choosing this. So thank you. I hope you're having a great week. We are coming off of a very strong weekend. We're still out in Utah, enjoying the last few weeks that we have before going back to Chicago. Pro tip for anyone looking to do summer kind of flexible online classes, that 7 a.m. class is a great idea until you move time zones and you're logging on to a class at 6 a.m. every Monday and Friday. Grateful for the flexibility. But boy, oh boy, my professor deserves a little bit more than I give him probably on those mornings. But it's great. We're loving our time out here, loving the conversations that are happening. So thank you for making the introductions. Please keep doing what you're doing. If you know someone who needs to be on the show, or if you need to be on the show, please reach out. If you need any help, please reach out. I love it when people ask for an introduction. I love it when people ask if we know anyone on the show who's gone to so-and-so, or if someone likes an episode and wants an introduction. Everyone who's come on the show is very open to being connected. So please reach out. Speaking of people who are open to being connected, this week's guest is no different. Tanner Johnston, aka Thor, is one of the most down-to-earth people that you will hear from. He just graduated from MIT Sloan, and I loved this conversation. He does not give an answer without giving a very notable framework, something that you can jot down in a notebook. So get your pens ready. He's just a brilliant guy. You'll pick up on that, and it was really fun to chat with him. So thank you, Tanner. And please, if I can do anything for any of you, reach out. Otherwise, let's get to the good part now with Tanner Johnston. Tanner, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, excited to be here.
For anyone who's just doing the audio, do yourself a favor, go to YouTube real quick and just get a look at this. I am sitting down with Thor right now, and you're going to want to watch this on video. Tanner has the coolest hair and beard of any guest we've had on the show, and I'll say that with confidence. I love all my guests, but you have a great appearance, sir.
I appreciate that. I tried to put the hair up. It's not the lovely locks today. I didn't want to distract too much, but it was funny as I was coming to school. A lot of people asked me like, "Hey, are you gonna cut the hair?" And I'm like, "This is like the one distinguishing feature about me that will separate me from the other 400 random students from all over the world." And so it's actually been an asset, and now it's part of my personality, and I don't think I'll ever be able to cut it.
I love that. And just know that all of us other white boring guys live vicariously through you. So we all want to be you. Tanner, give a little bit of an introduction to yourself to the listeners, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I studied mechanical engineering in undergrad. I went to BYU in Utah. Very quickly realized I was never going to be a great engineer and was kind of attracted to some of the more higher level systems thinking that comes with business. So after school, I worked for a couple technology companies, a consumer hardware company, and a business software company for a few years, and then came to MIT Sloan here in Cambridge 2 years ago, where I focused on deep technology, startups, and venture capital, and I graduated 2 months ago.
Awesome. Let's go to, when did business school pop into your brain? Was that always the plan?
Yeah, it's been a plan. If I can kind of take you back, second grade, I had this incredible teacher. Her name was Mrs. Finch. I don't know what she saw in me, but she just took a liking to me and, helped me on the right path. I told her I wanted to be an inventor, and she says, "Oh, that's actually called an engineer. Let me set you up with these engineers I know." She had an engineer from Hill Air Force Base come down and talk to me about fighter jets. She connected me with an engineering undergrad to come and talk to me about robots. Just an absolutely incredible teacher that changed the trajectory of my life. And so one of those people said, "Hey, just so you know, if you want to be an engineer, all the best engineers go to MIT." And I said, "Okay, great. That's where I'm going to school." So grew up, that was always in the plan. Got to high school. I only applied to a handful of schools, basically a bunch of Utah schools where I grew up, and then MIT and Harvard. Got on the Harvard wait list and, didn't get into MIT. And that was just like a dagger to the soul. I had been planning for, over 10 years of going to MIT, but the only solace my mom could give me was, "Hey, there's always this opportunity to go there for grad school." And so I said, "Okay, I can't go there for undergrad. Maybe I can go there for a grad program." And so, fast forward, I don't know, 10 years. I graduated undergrad, took the GMAT right after. to give myself a window of, okay, I need to get an MBA in the next 5 years. I really only applied to 3 schools, GSB, HBS, and Sloan. Sloan was the one I got into. And so that's how I ended up here.
Wow, I love that story. Mrs. Finch, I hope you listen to this episode. That's so special. That's really, really neat. When you were applying for Sloan, did you reference like your undergrad application and talk about how MIT was kind of always the dream since second grade, or did that not impact your application?
I didn't talk about, applying to undergrad. I guess if I think back, probably didn't want them going back and looking at my application, in 2010, 15-year-old application and be like, oh my gosh, this kid's actually not that smart. We didn't let him in undergrad. Why should we let him in for grad school? But I did reference Mrs. Finch because she was a pivotal point in my life. And that kind of played into my story of getting me on this trajectory of where I am today.
Wow, really cool to have a special second grade teacher like that. My second grade teacher was Mrs. Jepson. Actually, also, those teachers have a big impact. Okay, the other question I wanted to ask, though, was taking the GMAT right after undergrad is something that not a lot of people do at all. So what was the study prep for that? What was the attention focus on that, given that you were also recruiting for your engineering positions? How did you juggle that?
So I knew kind of junior, senior year, I wanted to get an MBA. That was the grad program I was interested in. So GMAT, I picked, the cheapest course I could find. It was like $300 or $400. I think it was called Exam Pal. And for the first 6 months of my work at Vivint Smart Home, the company I was at, I would work until 5. Everyone would go home, and then I'd just stay in the office from 5 to 5:45, 5 to 6, and just run through a couple of exam problems. And so I did that for about 5 or 6 months, and then took it in December just after I had graduated undergrad.
You took it one time?
I'm not that smart. One of the things I am good at is standardized tests. I just figure out how to game it. So fortunately, I only had to take it one time, and I had to get a good enough score to make up for my really crappy engineering GPA. And so it kind of balanced out where it was like, okay, this kid can, this kid's not a complete idiot. Maybe we can let him in.
Very envious of you standardized geniuses. Do you think there was anything else in your application for someone really interested in Sloan that you can say, hey, this helped do this, XYZ. You mentioned in our notes that it's a black box, which is very true. But if there is something I wanted to give an opportunity to share.
I think this is actually a regret of mine. For the longest time, I knew that getting an MBA from a top tier university was something I wanted to do. And so I made a lot of my decisions based off of the people I saw going to those MBA programs and saying, what did they do? I want to do that. Rather than taking a look inside and saying, what am I really good at? What am I passionate about? And how can I stand out? And so I think I may have stacked the cards against me in, choosing a path, being extrinsically motivated rather than intrinsically motivated, to the point where I think I'm very lucky I got in versus seeing all of the other students I went with who are very passionate or following their dreams. And they've been, following this path that, has been spiritually fed to them since the beginning. And I feel like I'm just kind of now getting on that path and recognizing and doing what I feel like I want to do, not because, in order to get here, you have to do this, but it's more of on the internal side of what do I really want to do? What do I feel like is unique to me, and tapping into that? That's the advice that I give whenever undergrads talk to me and say, hey, should I do this job or this job? I'm like, well, which one are you going to be better at? And which one are you going to like more? Because B school programs are looking for the top 1% in a variety of categories. And in order for you to be in the top 1%, you need to be really good. And you need to, most importantly, really enjoy doing that. So it doesn't matter which category it is.
That is something, it's actually quite difficult for me to do because it takes guts. Was that a lesson that you were going to adopt without going to business school? Said differently, do you think you got to this point because of your time at Sloan?
I think Sloan was very important to me. And I think it was a pivotal point in my life, not because of the career aspect, but just because of the life enrichment that you get from going to an MBA program. I was actually listening to one of your podcasts earlier, and one of your guests mentioned seeing on Twitter or X someone saying 2-year sabbatical as an MBA. And I'm behind with this. I'm like, oh, that was my profile. I've had that on my Twitter profile for a couple of years now. But that's because that's how I truly feel about it. The MBA breeds this unique culture and opportunity to simultaneously get really focused on something you want to do, but also explore and enjoy and really have have this opportunity to simultaneously speed up and slow down that I think is just a breeding ground for personal development and enrichment.
That's beautiful. It's interesting to hear you critique your own actions and kind of not choosing your own path. Maybe if I can paraphrase a little what you were saying earlier, because from the outside looking in, it looks like you did. Like you're the only, I know you're not the only one who went to Sloan. You have classmates, obviously, but you're the only one that I know who has gone to MIT Sloan. And it just looks like you are choosing your own path. But if that's how you feel interesting, talk to the listeners about your time there, because whatever you did, it worked. What were some highlights of your time at MIT?
Yeah, there were a lot of great times. Going back to this framework of like narrowing in versus like really exploring. I didn't spend a lot of time in class. Well, I still went to every single class, but in terms of where my mind was not necessarily focused on most of the academics. I spent a lot of time recruiting and networking with VCs and startups and trying to understand that landscape. I spent a lot of time talking with professors that I thought would be really helpful in my journey. I spent a lot of time spending with classmates. I didn't go on too many trips. I have a family, I have kids, and I think that drastically changes the types of relationships you can have and the depth of those relationships, but you still do what you can. I also spent a lot of time just kind of vibing, I think is the wrong word, exploring and doing new things. One of my highlights was MIT has the opportunity to cross-register with Harvard. So I actually took a class at Harvard Divinity School talking about Buddhist stories. And so talking about Buddhism and some of the stories that shape their doctrine and culture. And so I tried to be on both sides of the spectrum. I said, hey, I really want to get a job in a deep tech startup or venture capital. And then it's like, hey, like, what are the most random things that I can only do right now? And that's kind of how I thought about spending my time.
Wow. Awesome. What a great framework to approach business school with. Okay. What do you say to someone who's about to start business school?
Another framework I think of is there's three buckets of reasons people go to business school, right? There's what they say in their application, what they tell the business school of why they go. There's the actual reason. And then there's looking back, like, why were they glad they went? And one of the things that everyone always told me before going to school was like, oh my gosh, the people there are incredible. And the relationships you build are great. And when you're going to school, you're like, I'm not paying 200 grand to just like hang out with people for the next 2 years. And now as I look back, I'm like, I paid more than 200 grand to hang out with people. And that was so worth it. And I had gotten this advice. And so I think the single most important advice is if you have an opportunity to spend more time with classmates, if you're choosing an extra hour of studying or working on a project versus an extra hour just hanging out we have the Sloan Cafe, we call it the Slafe, like an hour in the Slafe or an hour studying work on a project, like spend it with the people, because that's where the real value, not only from a career standpoint, but mostly just from the life enrichment and like happiness.
Awesome. Okay. Do you feel like you made some really good friendships and some lasting relationships?
Yeah, I did. I actually think of the relationships I have, like I have this idea of there's 4 levels of friends you have. Level 1, the bar is like when they call you in 10 years and say, hey, can I grab 30 minutes of your time to ask your brain? I'm going to say yes. And it's like, okay, the bar for that is like, just like be a nice person. Level 2 is like, okay, like someone is applying to a job at my company and they ping me and say, hey, will you write a note to the hiring manager saying, yes, I really like this person. And the bar for that is like, we've worked on a project together. We were in the same section. We have some familiarity there. And I know you enough to say there is something there. The level 3 friend is, hey, I'm traveling to XYZ city next week. Who am I going to call and say, like, hey, let's go grab dinner. Let's go grab a drink. And then level 4, the highest is like, okay, I'm married, but like if I were to get married, like who am I inviting to my wedding? And whose wedding am I going to be invited to? And I think by nature of having a family and not spending every weekend, out hanging out at dinners and drinks and dancing, like those kind of like level 2 and maybe level 3 friends are probably smaller, but I think where you want to spend your time is with those level 4 friends, the people who you are going to be hanging out with 10 years from now. Last week I booked an Airbnb for a ski trip with a group of about 10 of us that's going to go out. And I think we're going to do that every single year until, we're all dead. And so just really focusing on some of those core friendships, and I'll do business with some of them. I'll probably not do business with most of them, but that's totally okay. And so focusing on that, I really do think that's kind of where I put a lot of my focus, and I'm glad I did that.
Okay. You are the king of frameworks, dude. I love this. I have not gotten an answer out of you that doesn't have like a very notable framework that I can take and transfer to my workbook. It's so great.
Oh, there you go. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, let's ask your wife. I'm sure she has a
Oh yeah.
plethora.
Oh yeah.
I want to ask if there's anything that you would do differently or anything that was, for lack of a better word, negative about business school that you hadn't anticipated.
Yeah, a couple different thoughts. One of my mistakes before coming to Sloan, asking people about their experiences, just broader MBA. One of the issues, and I didn't realize this till later, was that I only talked to people who were single during their experiences. And the delta between being a single or even having a partner and having a family, the delta in experiences is huge, right? And so I don't think I still think, I don't know, ask me in 10 years, ask me once I've started to pay off my student loans if I still feel like it was worth it. But I think you get more out of it if you don't have a family, unfortunately.
Okay. I want to ask if there's anything, just advice that you have for someone, not necessarily starting school, but 5 years ago in your shoes.
I think some advice. I really struggled with the decision to come to school. Sloan does not have needs-based funding, and so it's very expensive. Cambridge is a very expensive place to live. I think the decision to get an MBA, you can either look at it logically and quantitatively or emotionally and personally. I think for a lot of folks in the military, folks who are coming from low-paying industries, it's basically just a DCF calculation of, yeah, I'm paying a lot now, but my trajectory and earnings is up and to the right. And for those people, like, great, that's a very easy decision. I didn't necessarily need to go to business school. I was kind of already on a trajectory I was excited about, working for companies, working with people. And so it was really an emotional decision for me. And I took the regret minimization framework made by Jeff Bezos. So basically, like, okay, when you're 80 years old, laying on your deathbed, are you going to look back and which decision would you regret the least? And I kind of had to say, like, okay, when I'm 80, which I hope I live to 80, and looking back, like, would I regret having the opportunity to get an MBA from MIT and be around these incredibly bright people and live in a new city, and it was kind of a no-brainer, and it hurts to pay. And I look at my student loan balance, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I sure hope this works out. I think it'll net probably be like zero,
That's great.
at the end of the day. But when I look at it, I go back to, from a life enrichment, the friends I've made, the progress I've made, and I think in the position it puts me in my career, it will be worth it. But it was a very emotional decision, which is hard coming from a person who is evidenced by this, like, loves frameworks.
And yet you still chose the framework to do it.
And I still use the framework, but yeah, it was a very emotional and personal decision. Yeah, like, do my parents still think I'm crazy? Like, yeah, absolutely. But here we are.
This has been such a fun conversation. I'm excited to see what comes next, man. I really am. Do you have any inkling that you can share on your way out? Is it going to be VC? Is it going to go back to tech? What are we excited about?
Well, we'll see. I think my days in software are gone. I've really enjoyed spending time with startups that are in the physical space, building atoms, not bits, manufacturing, defense, energy, like some stuff that I think in 20 years I'll be able to look back on and tell my kids I did that and be proud of.
So sick. Ugh. Okay, Tanner, you are so nice. My goal in life is to become a level 4 friend to you, man. We're not gonna, either of us are gonna get married again, but maybe the kids' weddings, maybe we gotta go to those. So
There we go.
thank you for making this time, and hope you have a great day.
Great chatting, Drex. I will say, like, the life enrichment, like, I think that's a real thing. It may just be a cope for spending, like, a shit ton of money. There are other ways to make friends. You don't have to pay money to make friends. That's what I have to remind myself. I think there is something special about being at school with someone. I think you look at a lot of friends, it's like they're either like my high school friends or my college friends or my MBA friends. And there's something just special about that ecosystem that allows relationships to really flourish.